Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 11 2024 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this week, it was a fantastic week of predictions. Overall, through the first 13 games of this week, I have come out on the extremely positive side. Overall, most of the games, I ended up getting correct in both my against the spread and straight up percentages were over 70%. So I am incredibly thrilled about that for the week so far. So far this week against the spread and straight up. Against the spread, I went 9-3-1 against the spread. The push I got was the Lions-Texans game, which I was very thankful that I ended up getting a push in that one after watching that amazing debacle, comeback, resolve. I don't exactly know what you would call that performance by the Detroit Lions or the Houston Texans, though I do want to shout out John Mechie for getting his first career NFL touchdown. Dalton Schultz also had a nice score as well. C.J. Stroud also threw in 2 turnovers as well. But that was such a crazy game in terms of the ebbs and flows. Jared Goff throwing a career high in interceptions was very bizarre to me. But looking at that, though, I look at what the that game was, and for a spread pick, to get a push on that regard, I will gladly take that. So being 9-3-1, and then my straight up pick, since I got that Lions game correct straight up, being 10-3 straight up, that's fantastic. So that equals, so far this week, I am 73.1% correct against the spread, and straight up now I am 10-3, which is 77% straight up. So overall for the year now, my best against the spread record in all the years, the last few years since I've been doing against the spread predictions so far this year through 84 through 151 games, I am 79-67 with 5 pushes, which equals 54% even against the spread, 4 percentage points over my usual goal. I don't know. I feel pretty good. We got about 7 to 8 weeks left. I think I can hold on, hopefully, to an against the spread record that will be above 500, which would be a massive first for me. I'd be incredibly excited about that. But this is by far definitely the best year I have done picking on the betting lines. So I will gladly take my 79-67-5 against the spread record. And straight up, though, as well, with another double-digit win week, I am now up to 102-49 for the season. That equals 67.5% straight up, which is about usually above my average. And with 7 weeks to go in the regular season, I feel like with a lot of the games, hopefully I can keep going on a good stretch here, that I can continue to win plenty of games to possibly hit the very impressive 7 out of 10 quota that is usually the goal for most people doing these predictions. 7 out of 10 is usually always the ideal goal. But it was just a crazy week in general. Just looking at, the Bears and Patriots. The Bears look like an abject disaster after Caleb Williams gets sacked 9 times. And the offense has gone now 21 or 22 straight drives without scoring a touchdown. Caleb Williams actually hasn't even thrown a touchdown in the last 3 games. So that's very concerning. The running game really wasn't that effective. They look disheveled. They look disorganized. Pat's defense was just getting at Caleb Williams at will. Drake May looked pretty impressive. He did have that one tough pick, I think, to Edmonds, but he also did throw another touchdown to Jalen Polk, a very good young Patriots wide receiver. And the Bears have hit rock bottom, I believe, after that loss. But that was a big surprise. The Cardinals steamrolling the New York Jets 31-6. Kyler Murray setting a new Cardinals franchise record with 17 straight completions. He was only 22 of 24 for 280, had 3 total touchdowns. Marvin Harrison gets his, I believe, 6th or 7th touchdown as a rookie, which is leading that category. And the Cardinals, for everything that they have been through, I've been incredibly impressed by them, and I actually do believe that they're one of the more, complete teams in the NFC. Solid offense with Connor. They have Kyler playing at probably his best level, probably since 21. The defense, Chad Ryland's having a great bounce back year. The former Patriots kicker that was much maligned for missing plenty of short kicks. but the Arizona Cardinals look like a genuine team. And even if they don't win the division, and no offense to Cardinal fans, I still don't have the Cardinals winning the NFC West by any means, but I do believe that the Cardinals can still be a wild card team, especially with the remainder of their schedule, remaining. They have a couple games against the Seahawks. They have a game against the Panthers. The game against the Vikings, especially how the Vikings looked on Sunday, is going to be very interesting. And I feel like I am kind of leaning, as of this moment, to take the Cardinals to win that football game as of this moment. But that was a crazy outing. The Niners and Bucks game, if anybody watched that, that was a gritty performance. The Bucks now have lost their last 3 games by 14 points, so that's about a little under 5 points a game. And look, Baker threw for about $116. It wasn't great, but the one thing I got to give Baker is that he's been incredibly gritty and tough through this whole ordeal. He has just been fighting like what to keep this team in games, and they could have easily won every one of these games if you genuinely think about it. But it's a tough break for the Bucks, but they are on their bye week this week, and they have a very easy schedule moving forward. And the only game that they probably will lose could be the Chargers game. But I feel like for Tampa, they should take some solace in that. And for the Niners, look, Brock Purdy, about 350, 2 touchdowns, played another very good game. That throw to George Kittle in the corner of the end zone was fantastic. And I think for the Niners, the only problem that I have is their kicking game. Jake Moody had 6 field goal attempts. He only made 3 of them. So that is definitely going to be something to look out for as the rest of the season goes on. Because I do think Jake Moody's confidence is kind of teetering, and in how playoff games usually are, those kicks can basically be the difference in deciding who wins and loses a football game. Let's see here. And I'll probably, like I said, I'll talk about the rest of the games as well. And I want to shout out Pittsburgh as well. What a big win against the Commanders. Gritty game. Both quarterbacks completed 50% of their passes. Mike Williams with a huge game-winning touchdown. Russell Wilson now 3-0 as the Pittsburgh starter, averaging about 30 points a game, 385 yards of offense. I am somebody that is a Russell Wilson fan. I've told everybody that's watched this, and I feel like he's played very well. And I have to give Mike Tomlin a lot of credit. I owe him an apology because I would not have made that move because I thought Justin Fields was playing well enough. But the Pittsburgh Steelers have seemed to hit another gear offensively that I don't believe that Justin Fields would have been able to win that game yesterday. Russell Wilson good because of his deep ball accuracy, but we'll see as the rest of the weeks go on. This is now the Steelers' meat of the schedule. They have 5 division games, I believe, in the next 6 weeks, which basically they're going to run through their division gauntlet, which is going to be insane. And I think they can survive it pretty well because they usually play pretty well in the AFC North Division. But it's going to be up to Russell Wilson this play to see if he can hold up and grind out tough wins against a division that is typically one of the more competitive and blue-collar tough in the league. So those are my quick thoughts of the games, and I'll mention probably all the rest of them throughout my picks. But the buys this week, before I get into my picks, the New York Giants, the Arizona Cardinals, the Carolina Panthers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are all on buys this week. So you have Daniel Jones, Tyrone Tracy, Malik Neighbors, the Giants defense, Graham Gano, Kyler Murray, James Conner, Marvin Harrison, Chad Ryland, the Cardinals defense, Bryce Young, Chuba Hubbard, Javonte Sanders, Adam Thielen, Eddie Pinheiro, the Bucks defense, Baker, Rashad White, Bucky Irving, Cade Otton, Mike, Chris, the Bucks defense. If you have any of those players on your fantasy teams, bench them because they will not be playing this weekend. All right, it's time for my picks for this week. So on Thursday, when the 7-3 Washington Commanders travel to Philadelphia to take on the 7-2 Philadelphia Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles are 3.5-point favorites in this game. This is a very good and very exciting competitive game. I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles here, minus 3.5, and Philadelphia straight up. I would not be surprised at all if Washington won this game, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people took Washington with the 3.5 with that hook of the half. But I'm going to take Philadelphia here, minus 3.5, and Philadelphia straight up. And on Sunday, when the 6-3 Green Bay Packers travel to Chicago to take on the 4-5 Chicago Bears, the Green Bay Packers are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Green Bay here, minus 6.5, and Green Bay straight up. The next game, the most lopsided game of the weekend, when the 2-8 Jacksonville Jaguars travel to Detroit to take on the 8-1 Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are 13-point favorites in this game. Give me Detroit here, minus 13. That is a crazy spread to see in an NFL game. I think the last time we saw this big of a spread was ironically when Detroit played another AFC South team in the Tennessee Titans. They won that game by 40 points with Jared Goff throwing for 85 yards and 3 touchdowns, with Mac Jones being the backup, and all the Jaguars' injuries and concerns. I feel like the Lions should easily be able to restore the roar and roll to a very dominant win that should give the Lions fans some solace after the game they had just yesterday. So that's why I like Detroit here, minus 13, and Detroit straight up. The next game, when the 7-2 Minnesota Vikings traveled to the aforementioned Tennessee Titans, taking the 2-7 Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are 6.5-point underdogs in this game. Give me Tennessee here, plus 6.5 to cover, but I'm going to take Minnesota straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-7 Las Vegas Raiders travel to Miami to take on the 2-7 or 3-6 Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are 7-point favorites in this game. Give me Miami here, minus 7, and Miami straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-5 or 5-4 Los Angeles Rams travel to New England to take on the 3-7 New England Patriots. The Los Angeles Rams are 5.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Los Angeles here, minus 5.5, and Los Angeles straight up. Then the next game, one of the cruddy toss-up games of the weekend, when the 2-7 Cleveland Browns travel to New Orleans to take on the 3-7 New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are 1.5-point favorites in this game. Give me New Orleans here, minus 1.5, and New Orleans straight up. In the other cruddy toss-up game of the weekend, when the game that was flexed out, when the 4-6 Indianapolis Colts travel to New York to take on the 3-7 New York Jets. The New York Jets are 3-point favorites in this game. This game is so bad in so many different ways. Just inept quarterback play, sad franchises, weird quarterback changes, a lot of New York dismay and frustration and awkwardness. I hedged this game, honestly. I'll be honest. I hedged this game, so I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts here, plus 3. I had no faith in them to pick them against the straight up, though, so I'm going to take Indianapolis here, plus 3. I'm going to take the New York Jets here, straight up. Then the next game, in the game of the weekend, in my opinion, one of the two big games of the weekend, the AFC North's greatest rivalry, the black and blue to the black and gold for the black and purple. Or the black and blue for the black and purple and the black and gold. There we go. That was a better way to say it. When the 7-3 Baltimore Ravens travel to Pittsburgh, take on the 7-2 Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers, amazingly, in this game, are getting 3.5 points as an underdog. I am shocked by this, but it's one of the easiest picks of the weekend for me. Give me Pittsburgh here, plus 3.5, and Pittsburgh straight up. And then the next game, in my second straight outright dog pick, when the 6-4 Atlanta Falcons travel to Denver to take on the 500-5 Denver Broncos. The Atlanta Falcons are 1.5-point underdogs in this game. Give me Atlanta here, plus 1.5, and Atlanta straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-5 Seattle Seahawks travel to San Francisco to take on the 5-4 San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me San Francisco here, minus 6.5, and San Francisco straight up. Then in the other game of the weekend, when the 9-0 Kansas City Chiefs travel to Buffalo to take on the 8-2 Buffalo Bills. This game right here, it's very much like Colts-Jets, but in a positive way. I could not fundamentally choose effectively who to win. So I'm going to hedge my bet here, so I will get part of it right somehow, some way. So I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills here to win straight up. I believe the 16 or 17 game undefeated streak of the Kansas City Chiefs gets snapped in Buffalo. But I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs since you have them at plus 2.5. I will take the Chiefs plus 2.5 just in case for an outright win. So sorry for hedging that one. I didn't have enough confidence to take the Bills with the 2.5, and knowing the fact that the Chiefs got plus 2.5. I know it was a home game. It was just too easy. It was too hard to pass up doing a hedge, but that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm taking Kansas City here plus 2.5, but Buffalo is straight up. Then in the Sunday night game, they got moved up when the 4-6 Cincinnati Bengals traveled to Los Angeles to take on the 6-3 Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers are 1.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Los Angeles Chargers here, minus 1.5, and the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. And lastly, in the Battle of Texas, which had a lot of optimism before the year began, but now it's just a really sad. It went from a great pistol fight to a sad water gun fight. in terms of the Dallas Cowboys having a very equipped pistol down right to a Nerf gun. Actually, it'll be worse than that. It went from a great pistol fight to a pistol fight versus a Nerf gun. But when the 6-4 Houston Texans travel to Dallas in-state to take on the 3-6 Dallas Cowboys, the Houston Texans are 7-point favorites in this game. Give me Houston here -7 and Houston straight up. All right, so time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Philadelphia Eagles over the Washington Commanders. This game to me is very interesting because when you look at the Commanders, who played a pretty much a solid game, they pretty much played the Steelers nip and tuck essentially almost to the end. Pittsburgh had their touchdowns through the air. Washington had theirs through the ground. I believe Chris Rodriguez and Austin Eckler scored the 3 rushing touchdowns. They had some really solid defensive stops. The key difference was that the Steelers ran for $140 on the ground. I believe the Commanders only ran for 60. And I feel like that's going to be the tough difference, is that they're playing an Eagle team that has fundamentally over the last 5 weeks on this 5-game winning streak played very good to very great complementary football. The Eagles defense is about a top 10 defense in all the major categories. Their running offense, they have the most rushing attempts in the league combined with the fewest passing attempts in the league. And I think that's been a real positive effect because Jalen Hurts has a total TD to interception ratio of 22-5. He has 10 rushing touchdowns. I believe they said he is overall now he has the third highest amount of games with a passing and rushing touchdown. Of course, with the brotherly shove, that's fairly easy to understand why. But Saquon ran for another good 60-70 yards. They got 5 turnovers on the Cowboys offense, led by Cooper Rush and Trey Lance. That wasn't really a contest. But it just comes down to, in this game, when you look at the Eagles and you look at the Commanders, I think the Eagles' defense has played fundamentally better. Washington's defense at times against Tampa, against Baltimore, they did it to Arizona, but it's like there have been plenty of times this year where the Commanders' defense has been absolutely shredded by good, consistent, competent offenses, and that's what I believe this Eagles' offense is. I don't really think they have an answer for Saquon or AJ and Devontae, especially with Dallas coming back. Russ was able to get a lot of big plays to GP. AJ Brown has had a great history against playing this Commanders team for the last few years against the Washington Commanders. And I think, again, the Washington Commanders, they've made a lot of great progress, and they're going to have considered a successful year. However, I look at this Commanders and Eagles team and say the Eagles are just a bit better in all the key phases than I've seen out of the Commanders. I think Jaden and them, they could still very well be a playoff team. I think, they have had a tremendous season overall. And Dan Quinn has earned some Coach of the Year consideration because nobody expected this Commander team to be as good as they have been this early. But I'm going to take the Eagles here, playing much better defense, consistent running game. Jalen's playing a bit better than... And I just think the Eagles have better and more higher talented weapons compared to Washington. And I just think, very much like with Pittsburgh, Philadelphia will make 1 or 2 big clutch plays at the end, which will give the win to the Eagles over the Commanders. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Commanders won. And honestly, if I would tell you, if I did my stuff tomorrow, I might take Washington with the 3.5 on the line. But today, after what I saw out of the Eagles, where I've been incredibly impressed with the Commanders, I have to give Philadelphia the nod here with the 3.5, just because I feel like they've just fundamentally played defense better on a consistent rate, and I just don't think the Commanders can kind of match up if it gets into a shootout. So that's like Philadelphia -3.5, and Philadelphia straight up. The next game, the Green Bay Packers of the Chicago Bears. I'm taking the Green Bay Packers here based on the fact that I just look with the Bears, and that offense is just so inept. It's tough to just put into words. I mentioned it earlier. But it feels like sad because it was like Jordan Love kind of made his initial impact last year in the first game against the Bears. That was his first start. And he played Justin Fields. And it's kind of crazy because you look at Justin Fields and Caleb Williams through the same amount of games. They're basically identical in points and yards, and that's a real terrifying statistic because Justin Fields has looked much more significantly improved in Pittsburgh compared to Chicago, and Caleb Williams was never supposed to be associated with Justin Fields in the same sentence, but here we are, very much like the Jets. It's a very, dire and concerning situation if you were a Bears fan looking at how inept the Shane Waldron offense has been, especially with how many sacks he's taken, and it just seems like the Bears don't understand, like, with as bad an offensive line as they have, they need to let him have quick screen passes, slant passes, or just a very quick passing game to give him some confidence. So, but that's why I'm taking the Packers here. Like, this Packers defense, I believe, has been leading the NFL in takeaways this year for the most part. Xavier McKinney, I think, is first or second in terms of interceptions. Their pass rush has been very consistent for most of the year, and they just gave up 9 sacks in the pass. They definitely give up, another 3 to 5 sacks against this Packers defense, and I just feel like the Packers, they're coming off a tough game against Detroit where they were pretty much back and forth, but the pick 6 by Jordan Love kind of turned it around, was basically the difference. I think the Packers have better receiving options. They have a better run offense led by Matt LaFleur, and Jeff Halfrey has done an incredible job with the Packer defense, and I just feel like with that pass rush, I think the Packers should be able to go into Chicago and fundamentally get a solid win over a Bears team that basically we took today and said, okay, they are pretenders instead of contenders because nobody would have thought that they would have actually lost to the worst team in the AFC and the Patriots, but that's what they did, and I just don't think I have a lot of confidence moving forward against a division rival coming off a bye. Matt LaFleur has been really good off a bye usually, and I think the Packers are motivated after how bad they looked against Detroit to come out and stomp down on the Bears. And very much like what Jordan Love of Aaron Rodgers used to do, I do think that Jordan Love will continue to own the Bears, much like Rodgers did for his tenure with the Packers as well. So that's all. Green Bay here, -6.5, and Green Bay straight up. The next game, the Detroit Lions over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Really not a lot has to be said. The Lions, best team in the NFC by record. I would argue this week I'd probably put Philadelphia as the best team in the NFC overall. I can't overstate how disappointing and shocking it was to see Jared Goff commit a career high in turnovers, become the first quarterback since Matt Ryan to win a game with 5 interceptions. But they're playing a Jacksonville team that is the walking wounded. They're the walking infirmary. They really don't have any competent, receiving option out there besides Gabe. Trevor has a significantly sprained AC joint, and he could be out for the rest of the year. And it's very much where, it's crazy to think of in an NFL game to be laying 13 points. But it was very much like with the Titans to where, you kind of thought, oh, okay, maybe the Titans with their defense, they could hold on. You were getting 11. And then they ended up, again, rolling 52 points. Jared Goff only throwing 85 yards. I think the Lions could very much do the same thing, but I also think the Lions are mad. The Lions know how good they can be. Yes, you're not going to get nearly as much credit for rolling the Jags as you did beating the Texans in the way you did, but still, if you can roll the Titans the way you did just a couple weeks ago, you definitely can do the same thing against the Jacksonville team, which is reeling and just probably at this point wanting the season to end with a lot of significant changes coming up for Doug Peterson and that staff. Do I think the Jags could maybe compete? Sure. I think, maybe if Jared Goff goes back into full tank or, early 2016 Jared Goff with the interceptions. But I feel like with the Lions, the confidence they have, the running unit they have, and how porous the Jaguars' defense has been on a consistent basis, I think the Lions can easily at home get a nice, comfortable win, covering the 13 points and getting the 9-1, continuing to show that they are the best team in one of the 2 top teams in the NFC, and I think the best challenger to play the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That's why I had this Super Bowl picture all this year if you watch my videos. So, but that's all I like Detroit here, -13 and Detroit straight up. The next game, the Minnesota Vikings over the Tennessee Titans. I am taking the Minnesota Vikings here to win this football game based off of the defense. Both these offenses have not been playing very well. Calvin Ridley has had a nice little, run through the Mason Rudolph and Will Levis starts. Will Levis did make a significant improvement in the fact that he did not have a mind-blowing turnover or a turnover at all. But Tony Pollard and them ran okay, but the Chargers still were able to, with the offense that they had, put up 27 points. Justin Herbert ran for a touchdown, which I thought was solid. But the reason why I'm going Minnesota here is this defense. They held the Jags to 143 total yards. Brian Flores has basically willed this team to winning 2 of their last 3 games with the turnovers and stops that he's caused. And I just feel like with the Titans, it's a very similar situation. Could Sam Darnold turn into a pumpkin and do exactly what he did yesterday and throw multiple interceptions and not throw a touchdown? Sure. Also, I'm going to shout out John Parker Romo for kicking 4 field goals and getting a win against the Jags. It felt very much like the Raiders-Vikings game last year with the backup quarterback, where it was like you felt so bad for the Raiders that they only gave up 3 points, but they couldn't score anything. At the end of the day, I just feel like with the Titans, it's going to be a very similar situation. The Titans defense, for the most part, has had very good stretches of playing very well. I know their secondary's banged up. I know Snead was out. I know Quandre Diggs was out with a foot injury. He was put on the IR. And they don't have their starting center anymore for the year. Lloyd Quisenberry, or something like that. I know I botched his name, but anyway, whatever. But I'm looking at this Vikings-Titans game, and it's basically very much like the Jags, to where I don't have the confidence that Minnesota will downright be dominant or consistent, but I just can't trust this Titans offense with Will Levis at quarterback, who has had a propensity this year to have mind-blowing turnovers and just mind-baffling mistakes, that they can't will this Vikings team to another win, no matter how inept Sam Darnold plays against one of the better defensive units in the league for a majority of the year. It's going to be an interesting game, and I feel like, again, the Vikings being 8-2, that's great, but definitely it feels a lot different from the first month where you were rolling and people genuinely thought, you were the best team in the league. You thought you could re-sign Sam Darnold. But then as you watched, as the weeks have gone on, you just realized, yeah, he's still Sam Darnold, and you're going to keep him for the rest of the year, and Kevin O'Connell probably gets to keep his job. But this Vikings offense is not nearly as good with Sam Darnold, and he still has that gene in him to throw multiple turnovers and cost them games in which they should have never been in this bad a position for the first place to walk out of Jacksonville with a victory. Should be an interesting game. Like I said, I'm going to give the Titans defense their credit. I think they can put a lot of pressure on Darnold and get a good amount of defensive stops. But I think the Vikings, with their offense and with their defense primarily, Sam Darnold just puts up a few more points offensively than Levis, which gives the difference in the game for Minnesota to win. So that's why I like Minnesota here straight up at Tennessee plus 6.5. The next game, the Miami Dolphins over the Las Vegas Raiders. This game to me comes down to the Dolphins having a competent offense. That's it. Like the Raiders, they don't really have anything. Gardner Minshew's leading, like one of the league leaders in turnovers. They really can't run the ball. Brock Bowers is the only competent Brock Bowers and Colton Miller to tackle are really the only competent parts of the Raiders offense that I like. Desmond Ridder, now Gardner's been benched for Aiden O'Connell, who's still on the IR dealing with his thumb, and Desmond Ridder, who looked okay, but still was Desmond Ridder. And just like with the Dolphins, it's like, look, the Dolphins have had a very tough year. Their offense hasn't been great. They've lost a lot of nail-biters and sad games and lost off a 61-yard field goal last weekend. They could lose to another field goal against the Rams tonight. But it's just like, when you just look at the Dolphins and Rams, or when you look at the Raiders and the Dolphins, it's very much just two competently bad teams. So in that regard, I'm going to go with the better coach, the better quarterback, and it's a home field game for Miami. I think the Dolphins win this game and get a little bit of solace in getting a victory. I don't know how much help it puts them moving forward, but I think the Dolphins are just going to be the better team from what I've seen. And I think the Dolphins get a nice, solid win over a Raider team that probably hurts them more in the long run than helps them. But at least for Dolphin fans, they can celebrate getting a win over one of the worst teams in the league in the Las Vegas Raiders. So that's why I like Miami here, -7. Miami straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Rams over the New England Patriots. This game to me comes down to the Rams just being more competent. I think the Rams, through getting Puka, getting Cooper back, having Kyron Williams, getting their offensive line built up, I just think the Rams just have found a better juice. They've found a bit more of a consistency, and I just don't think that Patriot defense, as good as it's been, I think the Rams offensive line The Patriots offensive line's a little bit better, but I think the Rams can definitely get a good amount of pressure on Drake May as a rookie quarterback. And I just think, again, that Rams defense with the talent they have, with Byron, with the other young defensive tackle, Jared Verse, I really feel like this Rams team could overwhelm Drake May and make him have a tough overall day. The last time he played a full game, he got blown out by the Texans 41-21. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I just think with the Rams, much more complete team. McVay usually does well when his teams travel out to the East Coast. And I think the Rams, with their running game, with their defense, and with how Stafford has been playing solid, efficient football, I think they go into New England and get another solid win to keep them right in the NFC West race with only, after this week, with only 7 games to go. So, but that's why I like the Los Angeles Rams here, -5.5, and the Los Angeles Rams straight up. Excuse me. All right, the next game, the New Orleans Saints over the Cleveland Browns. I'm taking the Saints here because they're home. Both these teams are basically the same. Jameis Winston, his time in New Orleans for the last couple years, kind of was able to kind of get his footing. I also just like how the Saints look. They forced Young Oku to have his worst game as a pro. And I like how the defense played. They got a lot of big stops. Kirk Cousins didn't even throw for a touchdown. Bijan ran for $120, so Nick Chubb definitely could have an opportunity. But if you're just talking about the weapons they have, Carr against Winston in that dome environment with the home field advantage, and the Saints having a bit of confidence with their defensive players. The Browns just traded Zadarius Smith to the Detroit Lions. I think the Saints hold on and grind out a very awkward win. That's not going to help them at the end of the day, but at least it gives them back-to-back wins to give possibly their special teams coach the opportunity to possibly retain the job at the year's end. But in this game, now, like I said, I'm going to take the Saints. A little bit of a better quarterback option and the home field advantage with the receiving corps matching about the same. Though I do want to shout out Chris Olave. Heard about the news. Hopefully he can come back at the end of this year. Hopefully he can stop having to deal with concussions and become that quality best offensive weapon the Saints have in the Saints offense. So. But shout out to MBS though too. 109 yards, 2 TDs. Very impressive game in terms of how he was able to bounce in, especially on a depleted Saints team. So, but that's like New Orleans here, -1.5, and New Orleans straight up. The next game, the New York Jets over the Indianapolis Colts. I'm taking the New York Jets here based on the fact that I think Aaron Rodgers will outplay Joe Flacco. These teams are not very good in either way on either side of the ball. I think the Jets defensively has gotten much significantly worse. But, and I think that's why I'm taking the Colts with the +3, because I genuinely don't believe that, could the Colts win? Sure. The Jets have hit an ultimate low that I don't know if they can recover from. And I think the Colts could win with Joe Flacco, with Taylor, with how their offense is going. But at the end of the day, if you're telling me who's going to play better between Aaron Rodgers and Joe Flacco, the fact that I'm even having this conversation is downright stunning. I'm going to take the Jets and the Jets with Rodgers to win. It's not going to be pretty, and the last time they won, they beat a competent Texan team at home by, a significant margin. I think they can do it again, or I think they can win another game. I just don't know if it really matters in the grand scheme of things with where they are in the playoff picture. So, but that's why I like the New York Jets here straight up at Indianapolis +3. The next game, the Pittsburgh Steelers over the Baltimore Ravens. I am taking Pittsburgh here based on the defense and Lamar Jackson's history against this team. He's never beaten, I believe, the Pittsburgh Steelers in a big spot. I know that the Ravens have beaten the Steelers in recent memory, but it's very rare that Lamar Jackson going up against this defensive unit with all the talent that they have, he doesn't really routinely play well. I think he has more turnovers than touchdowns. And I also just feel like with Kyle Hamilton going down in the secondary, I feel like this secondary, which has been one of the worst in the league, just gets worse with one of the hotter quarterbacks in Russell Wilson coming into play. And I genuinely believe in this game, it's Ravens Steelers is always tough. And Derrick Henry could be a huge X factor in terms of grinding out, running through a Pittsburgh defensive line that at times has given up big explosive plays. But usually in these Ravens and Steelers games, it'll come right down to the end. And if it does as well, in that spot, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's just through history. I will take Chris Boswell to make a longer clutch kick right now compared to Justin Tucker. Justin Tucker has only made 3 of his last 10 50-plus yard kicks over the last 2 seasons. And I just think, again, Ravens Steelers, it always comes down to about a last-second-ditch effort. And I just feel like Russell Wilson, with the way he's been playing, the consistency of them being able to run, fortunately for them, Najee didn't get hurt. And I do think the Steelers defense, they will miss the impact of Alex Highsmith if he cannot go. But I think that's why they brought in Preston Smith, who can come in and basically replace Highsmith off the edge there. And it just comes in these spots. Who do I trust more? Or what unit do I think will have a bigger bend but don't break? I believe the Ravens secondary, as bad as it is, will be the reason why the Pittsburgh Steelers win this gritty game, because I feel like Russell Wilson, one of the best things he can do is throw a deep ball. And I feel like our secondary, after seeing Jamar Chase go for about 250 and 4 touchdowns, it is going to be a very long day for the Baltimore Ravens defense, and I just think that's where the difference in the game lies. I'm not saying Lamar Jackson, with the way he's playing, he's the clear-cut MVP. I believe he will make some plays and have a lot of big moments, but when it comes down to it, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, who has the better defense, who's a bit healthier on the offensive and defensive lines, and I think that is Pittsburgh in this instance. And like I said, I'm stunned that I'm actually getting 3.5 points. I'm taking 3.5 points with them to win, but it's probably one of the easiest bets of the weekend in my opinion. So that's all I like. Pittsburgh here plus 3.5 and Pittsburgh straight up. Then the next game, the Atlanta Falcons over the Denver Broncos. This is a game to where I'm going to trust the Falcons to outplay the Broncos slightly in this regard. The Falcons defense has been fairly good most of the year. I think they will slightly outplay the Broncos defense. And I think Kirk Cousins, even though, again, he did have a very tough turnover and Koo missed all those kicks, I genuinely believe that the Falcons are slightly better than Denver as a road team. Could Denver win? Sure. Bo Nix, again, played another efficient game, 22 of 30, 215, 2 touchdowns. He has shown very good improvement to say Denver has found their quarterback. I just don't know what the current Denver Broncos roster with the talent they have, if they will be able to beat an Atlanta team that is coming off a very humiliating and frustrating loss against a division rival. That I feel like they'll take out on the Broncos this coming Sunday. Should be a great game. I'm really excited for it because I think it's kind of a unique matchup game for both teams in the conferences they're both in to see which team should have more people believing in it than the other. And I believe this will be Atlanta just because I think Kirk Cousins will outplay Bo Nix by just a slight degree. So but that's why I like Atlanta here, plus 1.5 in Atlanta straight up. The next game, the San Francisco 49ers over the Seattle Seahawks. I am taking the San Francisco 49ers here to win this football game based on that Seattle's defense, for the most part, over the last several weeks, has not been very good. Geno Smith has 11 TDs and 10 interceptions. He's not playing well. They had a tough time beating this team at home earlier in the year, and that was about Christian McCaffrey. Brock Purdy typically plays very well against the Seattle defense. I think the Seattle defense is kind of getting exposed a bit week by the week in terms of big moments, and I just think with Christian McCaffrey back at home, they should be able to run and effectively have a balanced attack against a Seattle team that has had moments and has had flashes, but it just seems like recently they're just getting steamrolled defensively, and I think which offense do I trust more to move the ball? Niners offense against Seattle's defense or Seattle's defense against the Niners offense? I'll trust the Niners offense with CMC back there, with Debo, getting into the long snapper kickers' faces to win this game, at least by a score, and continue to roll on very well. So That's why I like San Francisco here, minus 6.5, and San Francisco straight up. The next game, the game of the weekend, the Buffalo Bills over the Kansas City Chiefs. Look, this is a game where I am taking the Buffalo Bills here, regardless, and I will bring this up again, regardless of Amari Cooper or Keon Coleman's status, I will take the Bills to win. I have that much confidence that they can win straight up, because I just feel like the Bills have been the best team that the Chiefs have played since Baltimore and probably since Cincinnati. And I have this little caveat here, where Josh Allen has never won a postseason game against Patrick Mahomes. He has won 3 straight regular season games against the Chiefs. 1 at home, 2 on the road. And I think this streak can continue with the way they've been playing. This defense has been sensational. I think the Chiefs' offense has been sputtering plenty of times. They don't have nearly as many offensive weapons as they have had the last little bit, especially with no Rice and no Hollywood Brown. I think for the Bills, though, in this game, it just, they're still bitter about what happened in the postseason game. And again, at the end of the day, if the Bills win, does it knock the Chiefs out of overall total contention? No, it doesn't. But if there was ever going to be a game where the Kansas City Chiefs had this undefeated streak end, it is this weekend right now. Because if they win this game, and I'm taking the Chiefs plus 2.5, just because I will admit I am wimping out for the hedge, I think everybody is going to have to realize something that is very much on the table. Because they play the Panthers and the Raiders the next 2 weeks. 17-0. For the first time since 07. Or for the first time since 07 and 72. An undefeated season will be on the table. Again, I know they still have to play the Texans, the Chargers, and the Steelers. 3 very, losable games, with especially how the Chargers have recently been playing, especially with how they played them in Los Angeles earlier in the year. I just think for the Chiefs, this is their Waterloo moment to where that undefeated conversation can genuinely start to happen. If I was them, I personally want to lose. Because I don't think, with all the added pressure that's going to be there, even if they don't care about it or not, I don't want to have to be that undefeated team trying to, for the three-peat, go for the undefeated record as well. But I think for me, with the Bills here, they've been playing better defense. They have a better quarterback. They should have better talent around, the receiving position. Though if Kincaid, Cooper, and Coleman can't play, it's going to be much more closer. But I just think at the end of the day, the Bills have always been able to find tough and gritty ways to win games against the Chiefs in the regular season, at least over the last few years. I think they find another gritty way to win this one and end the Chiefs streak at 16 to 17 games, which again is incredibly impressive with how they played over almost the last year. But I just think it ends with the Chiefs falling to 9-1 and the Bills getting a 9-2 record, and basically a huge tiebreaker over the Chiefs, but possibly the number 1 seed in the AFC. So that's like the Buffalo Bills here straight up with the Kansas City Chiefs plus 2.5. Then the final 2 games, the Los Angeles Chargers over the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm taking the Chargers here minus 1.5, based on the fact the Chargers have been on their best starts since about 2018. The Chargers are the first team since 2013 to have their first 9 games. The defense hones to 20 points or fewer. It's been incredibly impressive. Jesse Minter has done a fantastic job. Justin Herbert has an 11 TD to 1 interception ratio. The Chargers are running the ball really well. They're playing gritty defense. They're playing Jim Harbaugh brand football, which is turning into significant gains for the franchise. And again, I would argue today they are the 5th best team in the conference. I would probably take them over the Houston Texans today, because I just trust what the Chargers have been doing, and I just feel like there's a sense of with Justin Herbert, we know how good he is, we know how consistent he's been, and they've been limiting him enough that he's not really dazzling with the numbers, though that one rushing touchdown was pretty impressive. I just feel like with the Chargers here, they have fundamentally been more consistent, and even though Joe Burrow, 10 touchdowns, only 1 interception, Jamar Chase over 250 receiving yards, they should have easily beaten the Ravens both times. They could easily be an 8-2 football team if 5 to 10 things didn't happen, but here they are. And I just feel like that funk that they've been in, they're not getting out of it now, and I feel like the Chargers, Harbaugh can outcoach Taylor in a big spot, and Harbaugh will make one key, more effective decision than Taylor in a key spot, and that'll be the difference in this game. Though there will be a lot of Bengal fans out in LA because it is a Los Angeles team. So that's like the Los Angeles Chargers here, -1.5, and the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. And lastly, the Houston Texans over the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas is just sad. They've been getting routinely blown out now. They really don't have a great defender outside of Micah Parsons. The offense really can't run the ball. CeeDee Lamb is the only effective receiver that they really need to focus on. Cooper can't play, or, Cooper isn't going to play well. That Texans pass rush is going to obliterate the Dallas offensive line, and I think the Texans easily roll through the battle with Texas with their Red Ryder BB gun compared to the Dallas Cowboys Nerf gun, and get a confidence builder win back against a Cowboy team that is heading to their worst finish probably since 2000, and the lowest feeling they've had since 2000, the last time the Cowboys had to seriously consider blowing up everything and starting over. So this game I actually thought had a lot of promise when the schedule came out. Obviously, with circumstances, it's very different now. I think the Texans kind of, bounce back in a good way and just continue to put it on the Cowboy boots against this inept and sad Cowboy football team. So that's all, like Houston here, -7, and Houston straight up. But that is it. So those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page to check out other great prognosticators like Half Moon's Picks. Listen to Gio Knows radio show he does on Sunday mornings before games. That's a great listen to. Andrew Warren, Robert's Sports Show, the Fire and Brim Sports, the Jay Sports Show, Sports Fan Entertainment. If you've checked out those channels, please do. They make great predictions like I do every week. And that is it. So good luck to all players, coaches, teams, fellow prognosticators, and fantasy players. And until next week, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. And I will have another Monday video. Another one of these longer form videos. But until then, until next time, everyone, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. So long.